is the moment. Well, the old Defender's very nearly ready for its next big trip, and I have to say, there's a unique feeling of excitement and anticipation before embarking on a major trip like this. I'm not going to say today where I'm going, but it will be in the southern hemisphere, a great deal warmer than this, and I hope to see quite a bit of wildlife. All will be revealed in due course. Now, it's been very nearly 3 years since I last took the vehicle outside Europe, in the heady days pre-COVID. Indeed, by the time the vehicle arrived in Sarawak, we already had the first COVID outbreaks, and shortly thereafter we had the first lockdowns, which extended over the next 4 months, and they rather impinged on the enjoyment of the trip. But so be it. But if back then I tried to look forward 3 years to see the world as it is today, I simply could not have believed the fundamental changes which have taken place for the worse. Now, the video is going to be in 3 parts. Firstly, I'll do a quick rundown of some of the preparations you need to do before a trip like this. Secondly, the requests of some of my subscribers, I'll do a quick review of the spare parts I carry. And finally, I'll give you my reasons for wanting to get away at this time, to leave this accursed country with no particular desire to come back in the near future. And there's a great deal more to it than the appalling weather we have at this time of year. I'd like to run through a going away checklist. Not intended to be comprehensive, but nonetheless typical sorts of things you need to think about. And firstly, vehicle related items. Now, I'm not going to talk about having a thorough service before you go, that's obvious. But for example, the vehicle needs to be ready for the shipment. And in my case, height is absolutely critical. So I need to get the 2 rooftop boxes down, and they go inside the vehicle. Now, space is very tight inside a Defender 90. However, you do have the space which will be used by your personal luggage, and you of course fly down with the luggage separately. I've also got to disconnect the rooftop tent, tie it down temporarily with ratchet straps, and that'll be loaded separately by the shipper. You do of course need to agree this with him ahead of time. Now, it's completely prohibited to have gas inside a container, so I need to take out the gas cooker and the 2 gas cylinders. Many people recommend using a Coleman multi-fuel stove on a trip like this. On the other hand, I'll use the good old-fashioned Primus. Been doing the job for the past 50 years, and it's not going to let us down. The vehicle itself doesn't need much in the way of preparation. I need to put on the set of mud terrain tyres. There's going to be a lot of off-road driving, and it's going to be the rainy season down there. And also I need to take a couple of jerry cans with me. I like to keep them topped up with diesel fuel as a contingency. And finally, we can book the container itself. Now, this is quite an operation, and I've done a video on this, links given below. A detail not to be forgotten is the lashings. In the UK, the shipper normally provides the lashings, maybe at extra cost, but when you're abroad, if they provide the lashings, they can use bits of old rope, wire, you name it. So I like to take a good set of lashings with me. A detail not to be overlooked is that the lashing points inside containers are often very sharp and they can damage the straps. So I take a set of compatible metal hooks with me as well. For many parts of the world you need a carnet, and you need to appoint a customs agent at the far end. And you need to find someone who's trustworthy, someone who's going to work on your behalf and protect your interests, not someone who's going to collude with local customs in order to extract more money from you. and also find a guy who's used to dealing with vehicles and carnets, and I'm afraid to say many of them aren't. And finally, you need to find a local motor insurer at the far end, and don't leave it until you arrive, because you may find you can't find someone suitable. And speak to your customs agents about this. Well, other items, I'll just have a very quick run through, not at all comprehensive. Dealing with officialdom, you obviously need certain documents. Well worthwhile getting laminated copies of your passport and picture driving license, so you don't have to part with the originals. I need an international driving permit and obviously a copy of the meaningless COVID vaccination certificate. And for where I'm going, I need to make up a detailed customs list itemising all of the valuables you've got with you. And that's quite time consuming when you're listing all your photographic gear. Medical, I need to review the contents of the medical boxes, get boosters for my various tropical vaccinations. I'm also going to be going to a malarial area and need to take 4 months worth of prophylactics with me. And finally, you need to just review the general contents of the vehicle. Even if you've done a number of trips before, every trip is different. So I identified, for example, I need different electrical adapters, and also this item, portable urinal. If you're sleeping upstairs in a rooftop tent, you don't want to be coming down in the middle of the night with wild animals around in order to relieve yourself. Spare parts. Well, my philosophy is to carry sufficient spares to cater for any situation I may encounter en route, but not to go overboard. And to give you an idea, here's a view of the spares laid out on the floor of the garage. I tried to do it in an orderly fashion, so I track everything on the spreadsheet, both what I've got in stock and what I need to order, then subdivide that into items I carry in the vehicle and those which remain behind in the workshop. In terms of what I carry, just a few larger items, in particular an alternator, electric cooling fan, water pump, because if any of them fail, it's journey ending. Beyond that, I try to carry repair kits rather than the items themselves. So for example, repair kit for the starter motor, repair kits for the brake and clutch hydraulic circuits. I've also got an old clutch plate, although I hope I never have to replace that en route. And then by category, electrical items, and they go into a separate box. All the usual bulbs, switches, flasher units, relays, electric fuel lift pump, windscreen washer pump, and generic items like lengths of cable, terminals, soldering iron. I then got a box devoted to more mechanical items, in particular wheel bearings, universal joints, associated seals, a set of injectors, glow plugs. I've got a couple of engine mountings, a couple of exhaust hangers, and then other general bits and pieces. Full set of filters, gaskets, V-belts, and odd bits and pieces such as pads for the disc handbrake, because they wear quite quickly. Now the main omission is I don't carry spare shock absorbers. These are big heavy items, never had problems with them in the past, and I do drive extremely slowly when I'm off-road. Now all of these items go inside the spares box in the load bay of the vehicle, nice and low down, with the exception of the filters, which are quite bulky and very lightweight, and they go up top in the roof box. Fingers crossed, I've got enough to get me there and back again without a problem. So why do I want to be away at this time of year? There is of course the shitty British weather, cold, wet and miserable, very short days, lucky to get 7 hours daylight at the depths of winter, and you're reduced to just surviving rather than thriving. But more than that, we've got an appalling economic and political climate in Britain at the moment. And this has arisen over the past 3 years since the arrival of COVID, and there was a collective hysteria which overtook the country, obviously led by the government, but ably supported by the establishment, by the media, by the medical authorities, and all egged on by Big Pharma. Government expenditures went through the roof, and we've now been saddled with a completely unsupportable national debt. Now, the government expenditures, largely due to hysteria and incompetence, but I'm afraid to say there was industrial scale criminality and fraud, dodgy government contracts, government handouts, loans, all disappeared. People were basically looting the national treasury, and it's now got to be paid back. And the new government, against the backdrop of highest inflation for 40 years, has published its new economic plans. Now, I say the new government, these people have no right to be there. The Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, they weren't elected. They arrived by, let's call it a bloodless coup. As far as I'm concerned, they have no legitimacy whatsoever. And they've raised taxes the highest level since the Second World War, and particularly clobbered people like me who are financially independent. We contribute to the economy and we're not takers from the economy. They see us as cash cows, but I have to say, I think it goes much further than that. I think they despise us and are a little bit afraid of us. Because we aren't dependent on the government for handouts, we are much more independent, have a voice of our own, and we're much harder to control. But I'm afraid to say it's going to get worse. There's a war on the motorists. They want to drive us off the roads as soon as possible. I couldn't live out in the country like this without a car. Government doesn't give a damn. And they're dreaming up new ways to impoverish us. Over the past week, I've heard two spokesmen for the government in waiting, the current opposition, explaining why Britain has to pay reparations to the developing world because of the Industrial Revolution. The developing world, which includes countries like Brazil, Indonesia, India, China, the world's biggest polluters, and we have to pay reparations to them for damage to the environment. If you made this up, people wouldn't believe you. So I plan to be away for the next 3 to 4 months, out on my own, have a little bit of freedom, not paying congestion charges, ultra low emission zone charges, punitive taxes, and just enjoy myself. But beyond that, I am establishing residency qualifications in another country where they have a sensible government and they're very happy to welcome people like me and get away from this appalling environment where the government's in your face and on your back the whole time. Now, regarding the trip, I don't know if I'm going to do a video at the end of the day. There's so much wonderful stuff out there on YouTube, very professional, that if I don't think that I can improve it or do something different, I won't bother. So I'll take a load of photos and video footage for my own use. I'll review it when I come back. If I think I can do something a bit different, I'll do it, but I'm not just going to do a me too type of video. So if any of my subscribers meets me out there on the road, please come over and introduce yourself. I'll be away for a few months and maybe see you later. Bye for now.